being one with everything. That's what we're all desiring, whether it's a conscious desire or an unconscious desire. Behind every desire that you have, there is basically this fundamental desire of wanting to be one with everything. But why? Like, what does it even mean to be one with everything? It's basically just a way of, putting into words that we don't want to carry ourselves with our own power. We're all just basically longing for home. And we're looking for it in everything, in the drugs, in the relationships, in power, in status, in sex, in everything. And behind that desire, there's basically just this deep desire actually to just come home. And home is existence itself. That's why it's called non-duality, because, we experience a world of duality. There's warm and cold, there's male and female, there's light and shadow. But inside, this is all just a play that is happening within unity, within existence itself. And this existence is what we don't recognize often. So we recognize the play of duality. We see the relative plane of existence. And we worry about it, we go through it, we fight. We desire to have light, we desire to avoid darkness. But we don't actually realize the light that is behind the light and the shadow. We don't realize the Tao that is behind the yin and the yang. Which is basically the most simple thing there is. Just, if you ask yourself, in this play of duality, isn't there like a container that is holding everything? Yes, there is, like existence itself. So, but how can you actually feel that? To be one with everything actually means that you have the experience of being carried. Many people try to approach this state through prayer, through bhakti, the surrender. Some people try to beat or outsmart the mind with its own weapons. It's like Krishnamurti style. He's never talking about divine or God or prayer. He's just recognizing that the thing that is actually separating us from this unity is our artificially created sense of self that is like being created by the mind. So he sees the problem. There's like this approach to go directly to the divine, or there's this approach to outsmart the thing that separates us from the divine in the first place. And everybody's different. So that's where there are people who have this deep desire or longing to come into unity, and by nature they're more like the bhakti person, but all they know is those intellectual talks of non-duality. They listen to Krishnamurti or Rupert Spira, for example, when actually they are made in such a way that what would work is actually prayer, for example. Because prayer isn't you sitting there or being on your knees talking to God, please make the sun shine today. Prayer is actually just communication from the mind to the infinite intelligence, so that then the mind can dissolve into that infinite intelligence and then recognize that actually who you fundamentally are is not separate from that thing that you're praying to. So when that is achieved, then the prayer is no longer necessary. It's more like a bridge, you see? Or bhakti, it's like you surrender, and first you have to have a belief in something divine. You have an image of that divine in your head, but as soon as you feel the divine, then it's no longer a concept that you have to believe in. It's a real experience, and the experience is not a part of the dualistic, part of existence. It's more like a deep inner feeling and understanding that actually I don't have to worry about this day, even though I have some problems that I have to care about. But what is the power that is actually going to care about it? You know, the mind worries about certain problems. How am I going to solve this? But the mind is very limited. So it's the mind's desire, natural desire, which is also the desire to come home, is the mind's desire to have like a infinite intelligence that knows how to handle this problem, because the mind is very limited. So it starts to worry, and when it starts to worry, it's limiting itself more and more. So once you come into contact and unity, and you know, if you merge with that divine, which is the consciousness, which is existence itself basically, then you don't have to think about how to solve this problem. You have to think about the necessary stuff. You know, if you have to like calculate something or think about what you're going to eat or just plan basic stuff. But things that are out of your control, all of a sudden you feel, you have this deep inner feeling of trust that if I'm just going to ride the wave, I will see what happens. And you're going to be surprised because it will work somehow. You know, it will work if you trust it. It will work also if you don't trust it. And then the mind will say, yeah, because I didn't trust and I did something about it and I worried about it, it's because now it happened in my favor because I was worrying about it. But try to not worry about it and look if it works or if it doesn't work. Because I can guarantee you, if you don't worry and just go with flow, it will work even better. You know? It's like wherever you are, you can be in a difficult situation, but deep inside of your, we could say soul or heart, whatever term you want to use, it's like, I'm fine. It's almost like you feel like a kid again. You feel like a kid, and something higher is like looking after you. Because you're not separate from existence, existence is like responsible for you. You know, you're not separate from existence, and existence is like a benevolent consciousness that actually loves its creation, because it is its creation. It's looking after itself. I think even Muji said life takes care of life, but most people don't experience that because they have certain desires, and when they're not being fulfilled, or when something happens that they really didn't want to, experience, and they feel like life is not taking care of life because it's not fulfilling my manifestations, my desires. But, prayer and surrender and the connection to God is not about you becoming powerful and using the power of the universe so that you can get what you want. It's actually, when you understand what you actually want, is to have union with God. So you surrender your own will so that you are just a vessel for this infinite intelligence, so that it can move through you, so it can use you. You don't use it, it uses you. So you don't have your own will. When you have a desire, it is okay to wish that this certain thing happens, because you never know if you actually want this because it's your ego that wants this, or if it's supposed to happen through you. And if it's supposed to happen through you, then you don't have to pray all the time for it. You just have that desire. Also that desire is a child of God. It's not a product of the ego. So just trust that it's going to be, if it's necessary for the evolution of the universe, if you want to use that word, it's going to happen because it's necessary. And you don't have to understand why it's necessary. Maybe you're going to enjoy it, maybe not. But it's not just for you, it's because it's supposed to happen. And we're not here to understand everything. We are not in the role that we have to understand everything. So, but fundamentally what you want is unity. And unity means that you're no longer struggling to survive, to overcome your fear. Like let's say, for example, if you feel fear and you want to overcome fear, is it your responsibility to get rid of fear? If you would think logically about it, then we come to the conclusion that yes, we are responsible for our fear. But if you tried to get rid of your fear, then you can say out of experience it doesn't work. In fact, it makes it even worse. But what happens if you say you take care of it? I don't, there's this fear. I try to do everything about it, and you just say internally, you take care of it. Whether you say it to the infinite intelligence, whether you call it God or Shiva or consciousness or universe, it doesn't matter. There is just like this inner opening, and that's what's important. Important is that there is the opening of the ego that says, I don't have the power to overcome this problem. And basically then you just surrender it to something that you believe is higher than yourself, so that then the ego collapses in its knowingness that it's not powerful enough to overcome the problem that was trying to overcome for such a long time. Then there is an opening to something that you don't have to have a concept of. You don't have to have an image of God or whatever. It's just the opening to the very existence, consciousness, intelligence that is able to solve your problem. And all of a sudden you feel a relief. You see? Before I was interested in non-duality and all that, I had like a very normal, say like normal. Not normal. What is normal? I had this, I was like a spiritual guy, praying to the angels, because I didn't have a teacher, I did have a teacher, like my grandma was my teacher, still is, because she had a near-death experience, and she was experiencing all these beings that actually taught her a lot of things, and now she has these abilities to like heal and see things. And she was teaching me about meditation, and she taught me to like pray to the source and just trust that there are the guys that are helping me. And from that I was developing this interest in the thing called non-duality. And in non-duality is like it transcends even the concept of God and also the angels. But when you go deep into it, you understand that actually it's not really separate. It's just that God and angels are just relative terms to point to what's actually being experienced without any terms. Like when you pray, like let's say for example, you pray to an angel. And you don't pray it from your ego, so you don't tell the angel, please give me money. But you say, please dissolve my ego, please take away my burden so that I can experience the infinite. Then you let go of the prayer and even the idea and the concept of angels and God. Then there's an opening, and automatically you're in the unity, and then you don't have to turn it into a religion or a belief or into, whatever. You can use words to point to it. But that's how the things go hand in hand. And I'm just making this video to point to something, because I myself, from experience, when I felt a little bit cut off from the divine, from being carried off the source, when I was like listening to Rupert Spira and all these intellectual people who are talking about love but sounding at the same time so cold and rational, I see the danger that a lot of people who are longing for love are listening to non-duality, are listening to those speakers, and they understand what they're talking about. They understand the concept of unity and non-duality. They understand that they are the witness consciousness that is looking at thoughts. They understand all these things, but yet it still feels like a burden. The mind is awakened, but the heart is still closed. And that's what non-duality speakers were doing to me, and I don't want to belong to them anymore. I was like that. Things changed. I want to awaken the heart too. You see, because it's the mind can understand all of this, but it's actually the heart that awakens. Because you want to, the heart experiences, the heart knows. The mind can only believe, it can only put things into concepts, see an actuality, slap a label onto it, and then claim that it knows something. That's what the mind does. So the mind listens to non-duality speakers and then understands it. It has internalized all the concepts. All right, now I think I'm awakened because I can, I see my thoughts, but I still don't feel it. But anyway, like this teacher said, that if you realize this, then you are in love. So that's what love is. That's what unity is. So that's all there is. Yet you're still feeling empty. And I'm not talking about the Buddhist term or meaning of emptiness. You don't feel that kind of emptiness. You feel like I'm still not fulfilled. I don't feel good, but I'm awakened. My mind is awakened, but the heart is not. So that's why I'm saying there is no need to feel shame about being on the gradual path, because oftentimes the gradual path is only there for you to actually awaken your heart. And when your heart is awakened, which means you feel and not just believe or think but you feel and you actually internally know in your heart that you are one with the consciousness that is carrying your problems, then you can let go of that gradual path and you can continue with those practices if you love to do them. I still love to do them. And there's no end to it, actually. Because there's no end to life, of course. There cannot be an end because there's no end to existence itself. You realize that you're one with existence, and then you realize that you're infinite because existence is infinite, and then you see, actually, I fell in love with the spiritual path. I don't want to use the spiritual path to attain something called enlightenment or liberation or whatever, but just because there's I understand and feel and see and know about deeply in this unity, this love for everything that is part of existence, and therefore it's just a natural habit that I have to do these spiritual practices, not to get something out of it, but because I am that. You see, I heard it was a German Zen. By the way, I'm just talking. I don't have an idea what I'm talking about. It just speaks. I heard it was 1 or 2 years ago. It was in a video. A German Zen teacher or Buddhist or monk, and someone asked him if you're already enlightened, then why are you still meditating? And then he was if you are a chef, then why are you still cooking? It's I don't do meditation to attain enlightenment. I'm just doing it because it is the state of enlightenment. It's, just because you realize this doesn't mean that it's done. Or it's you're done with the work, now finally I can drop the meditation practice. No, it's not. The meditation is not supposed to feel like work that you're doing to, earn a living. It's you go to work, you actually hate your job, but you're doing it because you have to. That's what we feel when we think about meditation. You're not doing it because you're enjoying it. You're doing it because you think you have to do it, because you have to get that enlightenment. It's you have to work because you have to get that money. And if you meditate, but at the same time you are meditating, but you don't enjoy your meditation, then maybe it's time for you to find a different practice, something that resonates with you. There's also something very important that I have to tell you. Listen to your own life force and listen where it's trying to direct you. The mind loves to have, authority. It listens to a teacher. The teacher says, this is the only path. This is the truth. Any different path will lead you to illusion. All right, then the mind believes that. It has no evidence that this is actually true, what the teacher is saying, but it's just trying to hold on to an authority figure because it also has this desire to hold on to something higher. It's the same desire to find unity, but it doesn't feel the unity, so it's holding on to a teacher that claims to know the exact, true, and only way. So you have to listen to your own life force. If your teacher is saying you have to pray, but deep down you feel I don't want to pray, I actually want to I want to serve people instead. That's my spiritual practice, to feel the unity and to come into oneness. All right, then you do that because your life force says it. That's a higher authority than your teacher. All right? If your life force is saying, I don't want to listen to this guy, me, because I think he's talking nonsense, listen to that. Don't listen to me. I'm just pointing out that the path, the direction is within you. And if someone's forcing you to believe in God or trying to tell you that you should believe in God because that's the only way you can find peace of mind, but you feel like, no, actually, I want to, you feel like you're a logical person, you cannot believe in God, then trust that, go that path. You know, you'll be much, your spiritual evolution will go much faster. You know, all the people who say I've realized non-duality and it was, you know, I was doing years of spiritual practices, but then I was awake and then I realized that there is no person inside of here. And then they say, this happened not because of my spiritual practices, but it just happened out of nowhere. It's just like they say that those spiritual practices didn't do anything for the awakening. And yet, most of them did those things. And you know, I cannot speak for them, but I can just say that when there is just this opening of the separate self that says, I don't have the power to awaken, I don't know what to do, just guide me, just open me up, and then there it is. When there is an opening, when there is a surrender, if it doesn't come natural, you cannot force this. If it doesn't come natural, there will still be a life force inside of you that says, you know what, you should do that. And then you say, but that doesn't sound like a spiritual path. And then you're doubting that inner direction. You know, you have to know that everything is basically spiritual because it's just energy talking to itself. So listen to that. There is nothing that is not a spiritual practice, basically. You know, I wouldn't say, you know, some things, of course, are like criminal stuff, but I hope you just get the gist of what I'm trying to say. All right, I think that was it. Have a nice day.